Alright guys, so I'm going to be reviewing a comic series that's 2 volumes in. So I'm going to be reviewing Nocterra by Scott Snyder. This is from Image Comics, and rather than do a review of each volume one at a time, I decided I'm going to review the first 2 volumes together. So that's what we're going to be doing here, is that we're going to be talking about the story so far. And Chris, thank you once again for these comics. I understand that Chris told me that I'm going to be getting another haul, like a smaller haul soon of books that were supposed to be sent to me but went to him by mistake. So that'll be fun. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, let's focus on Nocterra. And so what is Nocterra? Nocterra is basically a story that centers around a post-apocalyptic world. You've heard this story before, probably a couple million times in comics, where it's in a post-apocalyptic world and everything's shitty. But this is a little different this time around. And what I mean is that the world is a lot different than it was than what it was before. Basically, what happened was one day, the sun was eclipsed. And the eclipse didn't stop. The sun is just gone. And basically, it became known as the Big PM. Now, that would be bad enough. But apparently, what it was that during the Big PM, those things that were left out in the darkness changed. They became these Lovecraftian monsters. So we cut forward to a few years, and we follow a young character named Val and her adopted brother M, who are, their parents were changed during the apocalypse, and now they work as ferrymen who are basically trying to get them to colonies. You see, mankind is kind of gone, but it's not like your typical apocalypse where it's there are colonies and there are thriving cities, but it's not there's dictatorships and whatever. There's actually government control there, and the currency is light bulbs and whatever. Because you stay in light, you're fine, but the longer you're exposed to the darkness, the more you're likely to become what is known as a shade. So that's kind of the story. So, in the first volume, more or less, it kind of plays out as, your standard... this could be a movie right here. The first volume pretty much plays out like a movie, where you have Val, who's just trying to get money to save her brother from becoming a shade, and she meets this young girl and her grandfather has this secret. He has to be taken to a special place, and they have a thing that will help save the brother. Yeah, that's standard movie stuff. That is textbook movie, and they're being hunted by someone. That someone is a villain by the name of Blacktop Bill. Blacktop Bill is very much like how Scott Snyder writes the Joker, just uncut. If you've read Batman Dark Knight on The Last Night on Earth, that's kind of what Blacktop Bill is, that kind of Joker. The comic, all in all, the comic is really well put together. I think it is a very it's a very well done book. The artwork by Tony S. Daniel's a part of this. Tony S. Daniel, of course, does the art, and as you can see, it's Tony S. Daniel, a great artist, not so great writer. But, let bygones be bygones. And he does do an excellent job in that regard. He does an excellent job of doing these great splash pages that are completely choked with word boxes. And also, I don't know if this, it's supposed to be an artistic thing, but there will be entire 2-page spreads of just darkness with, little red letter boxes. I understand that it's supposed to be all night, but yeah. And again, Snyder does this a lot, and he did this a lot in his Batman run, where he would just suffocate an entire page rather than just, let something play out. He will just do, these big, just multiple word boxes covering up artwork with just sentences that are just, meant to be edgelord, or either, they just don't help the story, or, in usual Scott Snyder fashion, they're usually, telling a story of something else entirely that's supposed to relate to what's going on in the here and now. So that, yeah, it basically follows the same kind of Scott Snyder tropes that if you've read Scott Snyder Batman, then you're probably already aware of what his writing is. And also, it does the big thing of Scott Snyder writes something. Scott Snyder writes something, and he basically leaves off on like a big cliffhanger. And I know what you're thinking. Well, comic books do that all the time. Yeah, but Scott Snyder is like notorious for doing a big dun 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 every issue. Like, that's kind of the thing, is that it kind of gets exhausting. So that happens in here a lot. Like, that happens a lot in here. The second volume delves more into what is... Yeah, the second volume does delve more into what are the shades, what is the thing behind the sun, and we also get to see an issue talking about, like, most of the origins for Blacktop Bill. The comic is very well done. I think it's I think it's a great story. There's some great action, but again, you are just strangled by just tons of text boxes that cover up really good Tony S. Daniel artwork, and I do think it does kind of get away from itself, and it is basically like a Hellboy version of Mad Max. Like, let's not kid ourselves. This is just Hellboy and Mad Max put together. All in all, it's not a bad book. It's a very engaging I'm just kind of like burnt out on post-apocalyptic comics because I'm like, I've seen enough. All right, I'm tired of seeing the apocalypse. All right, I'm getting burnt out on post-apocalyptic books. But this is a nice change. I'm very curious about Volume 3 whenever that comes out. I understand that it's very... the books have been very slow for these books because, well, Scott Snyder's busy with other shit, so yeah. Anyway, so there you go. You can go check out the volumes. Of course, the Volume 1 is $9.99, your typical, that's how they get you volume with the Image, and the second volume is $16.99. So, yeah, you could probably get this all under $30, really. Like, this is an under $30 2 volumes, and I do really... If you're a major Scott Snyder fan, I do really recommend you checking this out. I absolutely do fully endorse you checking this out. But other than that, yeah. So there you go, guys. Once again, I'd like to thank Chris. Thanks once again, brother, for sending me these books and the other ones. And if you've read Nocterra, just comment below, let me know what you guys thought of it. Other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.